Hello, welcome to CHRO Club. Today, our distinguished guest is somebody special because he started his career in a non HR field, and about 80% of his career was in non HR. Today, he's at the helm of HR function in the Mahindra and Mahindra Group and also a board member at the Mahindra and Mahindra Group. My guest of honor is Ruzbeh Irani, President, Group Head HR, Mahindra and Mahindra. Hi, Ruzbeh, great to have you, and I'm so excited about this chat.
Hi, Puja. Nice to be here.
Ruzbeh, let me start by asking you that there are very few HR leaders, CHROs, who get a seat, with the board on the table. Why do you think that they do not have a seat at the table? And you being a board member, what does it actually translate to for the organization when you have the people's leader at the board?
So, let me start, Puja, by making one thing clear. You kept mentioning board, right? We have our statutory board of directors, which I am not a part of. I am a member of the group executive board, which is a set of top functional and business leaders across the group. So that's the first clarification. To answer your question about HR leaders having a seat at the table, I can speak for the Mahindra Group, and I can tell you with a lot of confidence that whether it is at the group level or at respective company levels, the HR leaders are a critical part of all business decision making. Right. Business strategies are important. I have headed strategy myself for the group, so I know how important they are. But as the good old saying goes, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Unless you have unless you have the right talent to implement the strategies, even the best strategy is going to take you nowhere. So I think we recognize the importance of talent in the group. We recognize the importance of culture in the group, and we recognize the fact that HR is not merely an enabling function. It's actually in many senses a critical mainline function for the reasons that I just mentioned. So I think that's a realization I find increasingly across all progressive companies.
Interesting. And I want to build upon that. Like in the recent years, HR leaders are not merely playing the admin role, which probably was the case probably 10 to 15 years back. Today, they are strategic to business. They are the competitive advantage of an organization. So, how do you see in your small stint as a CHRO? How do you think that has changed, and what do you see the future looking?
So look, as I again to once again reiterate what I said, I think the importance of talent, the importance of engagement, and the importance of culture in any company cannot be overemphasized. As we have more and more automation, as we have more and more technology, as we have Gen AI, taking over certain jobs and certain parts of certain jobs, I think the importance of these elements is only going to increase. Right? The essential difference is not going to be having human beings; it's going to be having the right human beings who are constantly upskilled, who are engaged to the highest level, and who believe in the roles and the jobs that they are doing. So, if anything, this is going to become more and more important.
So, with all the automation that you mentioned, the challenges for an HR leader is not becoming any less. If you ask me, I feel, every day is different and every day you have bigger problems to deal with. So, what are those challenges that you are dabbling with, and how do you kind of solve them?
If you ask me what my key priorities are, I would say three things. Okay, my first priority is talent. it's nurturing the right talent, acquiring the right talent, upskilling talent, and ensuring that we provide careers for talent. Another key priority is culture. Ensuring that businesses live the culture that brand Mahindra represents. Ensuring this is understood and imbibed across different corners of the group. And equally important is really diversity and inclusion. That's an area where there's a lot of work that's happening. It's work in progress. We are not as diverse a group or as diverse a workforce as we'd like to be. But clearly that's an area that we're doing a lot of stuff in, and we're hoping that we will be far more diverse than we are today.
So, like how there are very few CHROs who come from a non-HR field. And here you set an example because you spent 80% of your career in sales and marketing. So what was the trigger for you to move from sales and marketing to HR? I mean, I'd like to know the journey there.
So first of all, Puja, I'll tell you the journey, but let me not take credit for getting into this role. I think that's a decision that was taken by the board of this company, by the GNRC of the board. If I may say, I was absolutely delighted. So it was really good to get into HR at the time I did. Just as a small aside, it was probably the most difficult time to get into HR because I started this stint literally on the day the world locked down, the last week of March 2020. That's when I got into this role for the first time. So, the challenges to HR were of a level that has not probably been faced in the past and hopefully won't be faced again in the future. Talking about the journey to that, yes, I started in sales and marketing, but if you follow my career journey, I've also done the head of strategy role, which was my first role in the Mahindra Group. I headed strategy for the group. I headed international operations for auto and farm. I did something very interesting. I headed Mahindra Racing and headed communications for the group, and then moved to HR. So it wasn't a move from sales and marketing to HR. I think I've sort of been through a lot of experiences, and I'm really grateful to the group for giving me all these diverse experiences. I know a lot of millennials today believe in getting these experiences by changing jobs. I was lucky to get these experiences by not changing a job and staying in a group and a company that I am very comfortable with. I think that has prepared me to lead HR for the group and prepared me like nothing else. I think it's very important for any leader, an HR leader is no exception to this, to have a very strong business perspective. Functions are not an end in themselves, they are a means to an end. And I think the fact that I came from a business background helped the cause. Now, that said, I was and am very fortunate. There is a fantastic set of HR specialists in my team, both HR leaders of different group companies as well as center of excellence leaders. And, so there's all the HR expertise available. You don't need another HR expert to lead all of them. I think it's a great balance.
Yeah. So you play a role of a strategist, and that gets me very curious, and I want to ask you that what does it take to have the different entities, CHROs, and how do you kind of share synergies with them to create the strategy? So what does that look like?
I think we as a group pride ourselves as being a federation of companies, not a conglomerate. The difference between a conglomerate and a federation is that in a conglomerate, everything is centrally driven. Okay. In a federation, there is a degree of independence that each company has, right? And there are certain things which do come from the center. and the whole group works towards maximizing the synergies for everybody. Now, why am I saying all this? Just to say that each group company, as you know, we have we are in a diverse set of businesses. We are in manufacturing businesses, we are in service businesses, we are in B2B businesses, we are in B2C businesses. Okay, it's therefore imperative that each business has the strategy that works best for itself. However, there are certain aspects like ethics and integrity, like the ability to provide careers, particularly for senior talent, right? Which we'd like to ensure work well across the group, because that's how we will get talent synergies across the group. Almost every group company, I think every group company, not almost every group company, uses brand Mahindra, and anything that is important to the reputation of brand Mahindra needs to be protected and nurtured by everybody across the group. So these are some of the things that we ensure are common.
So when you shift the lens to these companies and you're looking at their overall, HR functioning, would you be interested in looking at the attrition numbers or the diversity numbers, or more so like the ethics and the culture and those kind of things you spoke about, the softer parts?
I think it's a combination of hard and soft. So clearly diversity is something that we are driving as a common agenda across the group. Talent is an agenda which is common across the group. The three things that I mentioned to you as priorities are common agendas across the group. Now, look, attrition numbers will vary. In certain sectors it's higher, in other sectors by nature and definition it is lower. So clearly there you compare with the sector benchmarks. But the other thing that we look at commonly is engagement. We have a common engagement survey across the group, and we share best practices on engagement. We compare scores on engagement across the group. There is no sectoral reason for employees in one business to be less engaged than employees in another business. So these are some of the things that we drive commonly.
Today tenured employees are extinct, and you also spoke about that, to get diverse experiences, the younger population, they hop jobs. But you stayed in a company for like decades. So what was that kept you in one organization for so long?
I mean, I've been lucky that I enjoy what I do. At all points in time, I've enjoyed what I've done. And if you like what you're doing, you'll excel at it and you'll continue to do well. So I've enjoyed what I've done. The second thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that I've got the diverse experiences that others seek in various companies, in two companies across my career, right? And the purpose and the values that these companies have reflected is what I have identified with very closely. So with all this going for me, there's absolutely no reason to change. That's what I would even urge younger people to do. I would urge them to really find their sweet spot and then grow from there. Maybe I'm getting into a little bit philosophical here, but many of us lose the joy of the presence by thinking about either the future or the past. I think if we can live in the present and make the most of the present and ensure that you are in a present that you identify with and you enjoy being in, the need to change will not occur to you.
So, not many people reach the top like how you've done. So what leadership traits, or let's say, when you were progressing in your career, what are those traits that helped you to stay anchored to your work, to the motivation that one needs to be productive? What were those?
I think if you ask me a couple of things, I think it's important to keep learning. Nobody is perfect. It's good to have self-confidence.
Confidence,
It's good to have conviction in what you're doing. But it's equally important to be open to learning, be open to genuinely listening the opinions of others. I think that's a lesson I learned early in life, and I try and listen. A lot of us talk about being inclusive, but we are actually not opening to listening.
True.
Again, I mean, this is something we experience. We are trying to promote an increasingly inclusive culture in the Mahindra Group. That's one of our cultural priorities. And there, I think one of the things one of our leaders said is that, we keep talking about speaking up. We should actually be talking about listening up. That's one. And I would say that there is also an element of patience. Today there is a lot of impatience. Associates are not willing to wait, right? It's not as if there were no downs in my career. There are ups and downs in every career, right? If you're willing to take the ups and the downs, learn from the downs, and be a little patient, and if you are in it for a career, I think you then do rise. I think that's how I'd summarize it.
Those are wonderful advice, and I really appreciate that, because listening and being patient, I think these are qualities which every human being require. And when I was a young parent, the parenting book, that was the top advice given there: be a good listener to your children and always be patient. What would you advise young professionals who started with their HR careers, or who are in the midstream of their careers and want to succeed?
My advice would be, do what you're passionate about. And I think that is something that increasingly today's generation has taken to heart. I think many in my generation started out on certain careers because those were the careers to do. At that point in time, those were regarded as the careers. Right? But I think now people do experiment more, do what they're passionate about, right? So I would say follow your passion. Take up HR if you think it's your calling. Move to HR if you think it's something that you believe you can make a difference in.
Mostly people very loosely say that if you are a people's person, you make a great HR leader. So because you move from different tracks, I would like to ask you, do you agree that being a people's person is the gateway of being an HR leader?
Let me answer this in two ways. Being open to conversations is extremely important. It's extremely important for any leader, not just an HR leader. I would say it's even more important for an HR leader, but it's important for every leader. So yes, being an extrovert is probably not such a great idea, if you ask me. I'm a deep introvert. I am not a person who enjoys going and backslapping and
doing the small talk
and doing small talk and exactly. That said, I'm open to conversations at all times, and because I am an introvert, when I do have conversations and I have all the needed conversations, I actually listen.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to believe. That's what I hope I'm doing. Okay, and because I typically find that, and I've dealt with a lot of extroverts, the extroverts are more interested in what they are saying. Because that's the nature.
That's their nature.
That's their nature. It's not that they are.
That's how they're made.
That's how they're made. So, in fact, if anything, that may well be a detriment. Now, I don't know whether it's a detriment or not because I'm not an extrovert, so I cannot speak from experience. But yes, it is very important to be open to listening. In fact, it's absolutely critical. But being an extrovert, I don't think is important in this respect.
So, lastly, Ruzbeh, anything else that I would have missed asking you would like to share with us from your professional, personal lives, that kind of some milestones from your career and journey?
I've seen a lot of change in my life. I think that's helped. I sort of grew up as an army officer's son, so I changed 7 schools. Change started right there. I didn't change jobs, but I just changed one job, but I changed 7 schools. I've lived in 3 other countries, worked in very different cultures, and very fascinating to see how things are different and how things work very differently in different places. I've told you that I'm an introvert, so I've already shared that with you. I don't particularly excel, therefore, at these kind of conversations in front of cameras. In fact,
you're doing a good job. I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Well, I'm also enjoying it, frankly. But I'll tell you something. When I was a child, I had a terrible stammer. I couldn't get a word out straight. And I guess that's what put me off, putting myself out there, right? But again, as I said, nothing is forever. So, if you can learn from your own experiences, you can conquer anything. So, therefore, I'm sitting here talking to you.
Ruzbeh, our HR viewers will be very happy to know that your coming to HR function was like a breaking point in your life. And with that, we come to an end of this wonderful conversation. And I hope I meet you again after a few years and we do this chat again. So lovely having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Puja.